And then you say Layers podcast, and I'm like, Layers. But yeah, another Layers podcast.
Another Layers podcast. We're back in the
Yeah.
I need to focus, man. I'm not focused.
Well, this one's a very intuitive one.
It is very intuitive. It's just off the cuff, man. That's what we really think.
Yeah.
It's like what we're about, and we're gonna see how we feel about some interesting issues.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we can even be like relatively honest and say that with a lot of these issues, they take a lot of time to look through, and we want to do them justice and to keep up the rate of, you know, podcasts that we want to produce before, of course, having guests and everyone else on.
Yeah.
We want to mix it up as well.
Yeah.
And we found that we have a lot of, you know, opinions that come out of statements, as everyone does in the moment. And we thought, what a better way also to interact with fans who listen and who have their opinions and share their opinions.
Yeah.
I think it's a great way. So with the help of one of our friends, we got a few opinions.
Yeah. A few opinions on, you know, a wide range of issues. The opinions are quite controversial.
Yeah. And just to make sure we've seen them just now. Like we haven't seen them in the past few days and had chances to think about them. If you asked me to list them off all right now, I'd remember maybe a couple, but not all of them. So we have them in visual.
We have them in sight. And look, if we start laughing, it's because, you know, some of these opinions are very interesting. They're on the edge, but we might as well jump straight into it. We might as well jump straight into it. So what do we have first?
Suicide is a personal choice, and criminalizing it is ineffective. It should be legal.
And let me just make a point now. Now, this one isn't funny. That one is not one to be laughed at. But yeah, let's go into it.
That's all right.
Suicide's a personal choice. I'll start on this one. I actually kind of agree with this because I don't think that people should be forced to live if they don't want to. Like, I'm not actually aware that, you know, any country criminalizes it. I don't actually see how that would be effective anyway, since the person would be sort of, but you know, and if you do attempt to commit suicide, I don't think that being sent to jail would actually.
No, but I think it's a different. I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
But I do know that if you're attempting suicide, the police will intervene along with the ambulance, and they will stop you from committing suicide.
Yeah.
What this person's username was frustrated citizen.
Yeah. Something
like that. I think they're saying that it should be allowed. That if you want to.
Yeah. I think on their front it must be the case where there should be means of assisted suicide. Or that should be more readily available in the way that it is in Switzerland, things like that.
Yeah, but then it's a different word. It's euthanasia, right?
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, what I got from this statement is that if you try and commit suicide, it's kind of fine, and they can't, you know, they can't try and make you not do it.
So I think that there's like there's sort of a human duty, just in the name of humanity. If someone does try to commit suicide, you try to understand them and bring them back to a point where they want to carry on their life. I think that it's in just the name of bettering society and just doing good deeds that, like, you know, you'd want to help that person to find joy back in their life and find meaning and find a reason to carry on living. But I can't lie, if someone really wants to die, they should have the free will to end it and face the consequences, whatever you believe, of doing that. It's on them, really.
I mean, the thing that I struggle with is that it's such a hard line to draw. Like, how do you know that, you know, there's people that are on the fence. If you make it very easy it is kind of easy to commit suicide because you can jump off a building at any point you want. You can jump off a bridge. And so I think if people are saying that they really want to commit suicide and they're telling you that they really want to commit suicide, then I think most likely they don't really want to do so, because otherwise they would have done it.
Interesting. And actually, carry on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it should be legal.
Yeah.
To be honest.
You know what's interesting about that point? And I don't know if studies have been done on this, but I've definitely heard it on different forms of media, things like that, that people who then survive suicide will often be glad that they
Yeah.
have survived. And it's crazy because I feel like people can underestimate so many things. And I mean, your death is probably, well, that would be one of the that's the biggest thing, you know, or that's the most consequential thing you could do. And like, it's very easy to rush into things that aren't as sort of, you know, significant without the information you need. Easy to try and rush into suicide without considering everything. And
yeah, I think that if you're in the middle of not like a nervous breakdown, but if your head isn't clear and you've got all these emotions and thoughts and everything, and you're in the middle of doing it, maybe some sort, not adrenaline, but some sort of like rush like that, you can't think clearly, and you probably can't think about everything around the suicide, about whether you have family, friends, people that care about you, how they're gonna feel.
Yeah, but I mean,
And it's a discussed thing is whether suicide is selfish or whether it's not. It's a definitely very hard topic.
It's a hard one.
I would lean on the side that it is selfish, but of course not in every scenario.
You know what is? I think it's like objectively, it is, but then, you know, that person isn't thinking rationally.
Yeah.
And so
exactly,
to them, they're, you know, sort of saying, okay, it's selfish. It won't really apply to at least the way that particular person is thinking. I'm sure that they've probably have some warped view of, oh, the people around me would be better off, or they don't want me, or the world would be better off type thing. And yeah, man, it's just an interesting one. But I can't lie, to say, is it legal or illegal? I don't even think we need to sort of apply a sort of legal status to it. I don't see what doing that would actually achieve or really change. But I still stand by my first point. Look,
you think euthanasia should be legalized?
I think people should be able to kill themselves if they want to, but actually no, because actually no, I changed that. Because what if they've got kids? What if they've got like dependents? What if they're in a role that is, you know, integral to a community or something like that?
Yeah,
so
but
there's so many things that then branch off.
If it's a personal,
it's difficult.
If you're leaving it, if you decide that suicide is a personal choice that someone should have access to, then anything else doesn't have any weight on the choice. You know, because you're only ultimately directly affecting your life. You're indirectly affecting other people's lives by leaving, but you are only directly affecting yours. Yeah. I don't think it should be legal, because in my opinion, as soon as one person who maybe didn't really want to commit suicide or didn't really want to do it is allowed to do so, then suddenly that's one person lost too many, if that makes sense. But of course it could be made legal for a certain type of person, whether they are physically or mentally suffering, and you know, it's a proven.
Yeah, I feel like there could be a sort of process that's put in hand to determine whether someone fits a certain criteria that could then allow them to.
It's probably how it's done, to be
commit
fair.
suicide if they want, and finding that right balance between, okay, it's actually acceptable at this point would be a huge moral question that'd be so difficult to actually work out. But something within me just says this, man: if someone really doesn't want to live, why should they have to live?
Well, you can turn a page. You can not wanting to live isn't a permanent status.
You can't. That's a generalization.
I think any sort of emotion, is not a permanent status. Therefore, not wanting to live as an emotion.
What if it's a state of mind? What if it's like a collection of emotions that have brought you over time into a state of being where you don't want to live.
I think that if there's a scenario where you're old enough and have gone through enough you don't have enough time to, and you definitely don't have the environment to change that, to shift it. But I think there is always a way to shift that perception or that state of mind, whatever you want to call it. So to me, because there's the chance of that changing, I wouldn't want the person. But then it's what you're saying. The truth is that if someone really wants to leave, they can, because you can go on any bridge or anything and jump off. I just don't think it should be facilitated. It also becomes, with a lot of these things, such as abortion and other topics like this, private companies come out of it who directly benefit from,
That's so true, man.
I'm not saying, I don't know if they've just legalized it in Switzerland, I think, and they
were testing it in Germany as well, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that came out.
I've got no idea of whether those are private companies or not. I would hope, and I would guess that they're not private companies, and that, in my opinion, makes a big difference, because if there are companies that are profiting off people committing suicide, then that becomes a whole other issue. It incentivizes it.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
But I just think you're opening a door that leads to more potentially bad things than good things.
That's it, man. I mean, it would be something that would have to be thought about very carefully, and planned in a way that
I also don't,
would have all of these.
You're right, it has to be thought about very carefully. I also don't think it's in any shape or form a priority of what needs to be thought about right now.
For sure.
I saw that they
suicide prevention is a much bigger bigger priority than trying to facilitate it. But carry on, what were you gonna say?
I saw that they opened up a dual pod so that couples can leave together, which
really?
Yeah, so I saw this older elderly couple left together holding hands, and it's nicer. But in my mind, I was just thinking, like, in the last moments, what if either one of them was like, there's no way your heart doesn't start beating and you don't start doubting the decision. And imagine, like, you're in that pod and suddenly, I think it's through gas, no pain, nothing, but you hear the hissing of the gas or something, and you start doubting it in that second. Imagine you see, like, you're someone that works there and you see the person react, essentially saying no, and it's too late.
Well, guess what? The company will have had
disclaimers
signed, NDAs, all the legal, and to work in a place like that, can't lie, man. You've got to be able to dissociate, and you've got to be a different type of person to see that much death, and to even if it's in like a humane sort of way. To facilitate death, man, the way you've got to be able to think, I could never do something like that, man.
Imagine the people you interacted with them before. If I think about the person that I'd want to interact with before they do it, the way we've been speaking, we've been imagining almost people that are kind of depressed and just don't want to live anymore if it's a negative thing. But there could be people who are content and are essentially saying, I've had a great life and I've come to a point where...
Well, quit while I'm ahead type.
Yeah, I guess to a certain extent. But more so just, I'm happy with everything and I want to leave right now. I feel like it's the right moment. It would be, in my opinion, it would be far easier to deal with those.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, everyone believes that life is good. Life is better than no life. And so it'd be hard to accept that someone's given up on life, especially being a believer of life. But if it's someone that's essentially saying, I've ticked off all the boxes, I'm happy.
I think that's sort of innately, that's actually inhuman, I think. I don't think we really ever get to that point. Can you get to that point of content? I think that goes against what we're about. Like, why do billionaires carry on? Why do people that do great feats carry on?
I think for most people, you're right. But there is definitely a group of people that would be fine with just leaving or just being content even with a certain amount. But And it's also, you hear more about the people that are persistent in their profession.
fair,
The
fair.
LeBrons that will never give up, the Ronaldos, the billionaires like you've mentioned.
Yeah.
There are also those that pack it up early, are
Yeah,
happy and are
they
content.
sail into the sunset.
Life, of course, is so much more complex than a profession.
Of
But
course, of course.
yeah,
It's interesting. I think at the heart of it, and I have to say this given my beliefs, while I say that if people want to die, if people want to da, they can. I feel like, because what are the reasons that someone, would want to commit suicide? Maybe they're suffering so much. I think that will pass with time. If you give it enough time and if you have the right systems, you approach it in the right way. People have a lack of purpose. I think something like finding the right religion, the right, having kids, looking at the right experiences, you can find that purpose. I feel like, there'll always, and it will probably be a very difficult journey in most cases, but there will always be a way to get back to a point where it's worth living. But then it's just a case of, should someone have to go through that journey back to wanting to live?
yeah.
Do you think someone should have to do that?
But you say have to as in as
As
if
in, like,
it's
is it a duty to, if you don't want to live, do you believe it's your duty to carry on living?
Yeah, I believe
Fair
it's
enough.
your duty and your responsibility to carry on living, but at the end of the day, you can kill yourself if you want. Suicide happens in every country,
Yeah.
a lot of times, every year, every day or whatever. But the state facilitating it is not something I agree with, because it normalizes it, like it has normalized a lot of other things that I don't agree or you might agree, or And so at the end of the day, I think it is your purpose to live.
Yeah.
It is you have to believe it. Otherwise, there's no point of life altogether.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
But I think we spoke well enough about this.
I think we can move on to the next one. And look, we're gonna have to address that one again in more detail,
For sure.
because there's so much more that we've probably glossed over, and obviously because we're just thinking about it now, the way that we thought about probably isn't the most direct and effective, but interesting one to start off with.
Let's go
to the next one.
So the next one is alimony and child support. Alimony is unfair and should be abolished, while child support should be transparently managed in an account both parents contribute to based on their financial capacity without benefiting either parent.
Yeah. Should we start with alimony?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So alimony, the fact that when you get a divorce, either side, depending on the incomes of each spouse, may have to pay a sort of settlement or an ongoing fee each month or whichever time period, so that the other spouse can maintain the lifestyle that they're used to, or at least that's my understanding of it. I think that's BS, man. I think that is such. I think it's weak, man. I think if you go through a divorce and within yourself you are happy to rely on someone who has either done you wrong, or you've got irreconcilable differences, or you hate, and you're just willing to live your life off that money from them, that's like dirty money, man. That's blood money, man. And I say it from this way because I think it's more of a, or at least in society, in Western society at least, it's more of a men v women thing, where you see a lot of women sort of getting crazy divorce payments from men, and it's almost become a thing that's just an issue that can make you cynical about marriage in a way. I don't know. I don't like the idea, man. I don't like it. I really don't.
The thing is, there are certain women or men who give up a career path or lifestyle to raise a child. I mean, I can speak for my mum. She used to work. She gave up her job to raise my brother and I, right? And so imagine 10 years on.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I understand. Take your same stance on people that have not given up their lifestyle, and that simply, if they don't have children, then they, if they've not made an equivalent sacrifice, then I don't think they should get
But
a payout.
here's the thing, though. I think like it's very difficult to base a payment like that on hypotheticals.
Yeah, it
and
is.
have it make actual sense. Like, look, look. I'm not a monster, man. I'd be happy if it's reasonable amounts. But you hear some of the settlements, and they're millions, and it's like,
Yeah, but they're millions when the other side can afford them to be millions.
I mean, can they always afford it?
I mean, there is a statistic which is most women, like if you look at the richest women in the world, they're rich because of divorces. I mean,
mate,
it is a truth. The crazy thing is that I would have thought that especially these people that are the top 0. Whatever percent in the world would have a loophole to get out of paying these crazy
prenup,
amounts.
innit? Prenup.
Prenup, yeah, but prenup
prenup's-
isn't a loophole
yeah,
because you just sign it before and then you don't have to pay. If it gets to it, then
And prenups can be thrown out by courts very easily.
oh really?
Yeah.
Do you know based on
Just like human sort of rights type thing. Don't quote me on this, but they can be thrown out.
Okay, fair
But yeah,
enough.
carry on.
Yeah, I would have thought that these billionaires have some way, some loophole to not pay
Yeah.
such high amounts. But I think the child support point, saying it should be transparently managed in an account both parents contribute to based on their financial capacity without benefiting either parent.
Yeah.
I think that's very sensible.
That's very fair. That's very fair.
I'm surprised it isn't close enough to that.
I mean, like you see, I think at least the example that's in our faces the most through social media is, different sports people, especially over in America. The NBA players and NFL players love to put babies in different women, and then the women come up off that, and I don't know. That seems again just like, I just look at the person really. Like, is that really how you want to make your money? Is that really?
Yeah, but I look at the NBA player and I think worse of them for having babies with different women more so than
Nah, I don't think worse of them. I think it's irresponsible and stupid, but I definitely think worse of the woman. Because it's almost it's almost calculated.
It is, but it's really stupid from the NBA players.
Yeah, no, it's very stupid. I don't feel much sympathy because there's so many.
I don't feel any sympathy.
There's so many cases before it that you could have learned from.
I agree.
Tales.
When you look at it from a calculated angle,
the whole system of it seems calculated, man. I just wish but that always happens when money's involved, man. Money's gonna corrupt different things, and the system is probably for the better. Is sort of biased towards a woman. That probably in general is better, but then it just gets exploited. Because
I agree.
There's so much subjectivity involved, and then the rules change from case to case, and so it's an interesting one. With child support, though, as you said, I'm surprised that there isn't a fairer system, or just more transparency. Hate the fact that you're sending it directly to their bank account, and now you probably see you go to your baby mum's house, bro. She's got a new Range Rover, bro. What is this? You didn't have a Range Rover before. Come on, mate. And the kid's got his trainers broke down, mate. the laces are splitting. Come on, mate. Oh,
I've seen regarding like NBA players and all that. I've seen crazy child support amounts.
Crazy.
That's another thing. The child support seems to vary according to the lifestyle that family / person is living, which of course to a degree makes sense, but it shouldn't just be proportional to infinity. It should probably plateau.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because you only need so much money to support.
Yeah. I'm really surprised that isn't a thing that hasn't been discussed in law, because the people that have the most to lose are the people with the most resources. They have the most power to lobby things in government and in, lawmaking circles. So I'm surprised these guys haven't made an effort to make things
We're also
easier for
not,
themselves.
yeah, we're taking this guy's statement and assuming that the opposite is truth, right? So he's saying that it should be managed on an account both parents contribute to and should be only to do with the childcare.
Yeah.
It might be like this in certain places.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
But we're taking it as if it's not, and from our experience, we don't think it is in the US or in the UK.
Yeah.
Specifically the US.
I wanted to ask a question related to this. What do you think about prenups? The idea of them.
I think it's fine to sign a prenup. I don't think I would ask to sign a prenup.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The truth is, most people end up complaining about the other side of the person in the relationship. If people were truly responsible and had great relationships and maintained just healthiness throughout, then they wouldn't need and they wouldn't end up, paying all this childcare and feeling. Maybe I'm being very naive.
Yeah.
Probably I'm looking at the statistics when you look at divorces and everything around it. But yeah, I think prenups are fine. I definitely don't. If I asked my future wife to sign a prenup and they reacted to me asking that in a very negative manner, it would be a red flag.
But
if they were like, yeah, of course, let's do it, then I would consider even not doing it.
But here's the thing, like, the prenup should be a neutral thing. It shouldn't have connotations of I'm suspicious of you or I'm planning an exit. I'm like covering my back in the case of if things go left. Like, it shouldn't have those connotations, but it does because it's not the norm. And so I can understand if someone who is asked to sign a prenup doesn't react to it sort of well.
But if you're in a healthy relationship, you've got no reason to doubt it. And if you do doubt it, you're being insensitive.
I mean, people will then say if you're in a healthy relationship, you've got no reason to sign the prenup.
Well, what I would say is that things change very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Humans are very emotional, beings that can react to and make harsh decisions, one bad decision can ruin the whole relationship.
Yeah.
So you're covering bases. And I don't think it's a man and woman thing. I think it's a relationship thing where the person who has got considerably more assets than the other one should be able to decide himself whether those assets should be divided or not.
Yeah.
And leaving it up to a judge who isn't part of anything to do with your relationship to say because you've been married suddenly half of it is the other person deserves it is wrong. I would believe that if I had a long marriage and then I suddenly split with a person, I would out of my own pocket give a good amount of my wealth to that other person to sustain, to give them a happy life. Of course, I believe that.
Yeah.
But if someone comes to me and says you have to give them 50% and maybe something really bad's happened and I don't want to, that's just wrong.
Yeah. So in my head, I would really hope I wouldn't want to ever have to sign a prenup, man, or sort of bring that forward as something. I would really...
Fair enough.
Like, because I just don't think that realistically, like, a woman's going to take that. Like, come on, man, women, they're not going to take that. If she's a very rational thinker and you break it down in a way... Might
be the woman asking you to sign the prenup.
Sure, maybe. And you know what, man? If she's worth something, bro, I'm not... I might turn the tides on her, man. But yeah, no, it's a crazy one. I wouldn't want to be in a relationship where I feel that it's a necessity. I don't know, but then again, like, is that a naive standpoint, given the fact that 50% of marriages...
I think it's something that is as big as you make it. Imagine you were like, can you sign this prenup? And she was like, yeah, of course, sign and then done. Finished. There's nothing around it.
But I think that's like 0. That's got a probability of 0.0052.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think in in the current relationship I'm in, it would be taken fairly lightly.
Fair.
I would expect
That's
trust.
healthy, man.
Yeah, I would expect trust my way. Maybe I'm naive, I don't know, but I'd expect trust my way to from the other person to know that that if we ever got married and if that ever happened, then I would be, I'd give her.
Yeah.
Of course, it can be the other way, but I'm assuming that I would be wealthier than the other person.
Yeah.
It's a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Then I would give her a good amount from my side.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, also a lot of couples are quite evenly balanced, especially in the world. Yeah.
Today's world,
So it's
for
not,
sure.
it's not like the husband is a multi-millionaire and the wife has got nothing.
No, yeah.
I think prenups make sense when there's such a massive disparity in assets and wealth.
And when they do make sense, it's hard for the other side to argue against.
Yeah.
Because it's like, come on, man, I've got houses already.
I think it would be taken negatively if
you're the same.
if you're the same and you go to somewhere and you're like, can you sign this prenup? Because yeah, what are you talking about? It would be embarrassing though.
Yeah.
Imagine you go and ask her, or she asks you, can you sign this prenup? And you're like,
bro, like
wait, so what?
we are the same, man. Oh, that's funny.
What?
That's funny. But
yeah.
I think generally the whole, alimony child support system needs reform in a lot of countries. It needs to be looked at and made fairer for both sides. I think there's too much emotion, too much bias that gets let into all of it. But that might just be because you only really hear on the news and social media of these extreme edge cases where they go crazy. I'm sure in practice it's actually a lot fairer than what we see. But yeah, man.
I mean, I've got some friends whose parents are divorced, and I've seen unfairness in terms of wealth distribution. Obviously, I'm not going to speak on it.
Yeah.
That's been my experience of it. But
That's crazy.
We also haven't talked about how there is a culture of fathers leaving, especially in the US, right? And so to have a legal framework supporting the mother and child, it's vital. Like you can't just, but neither one of us, and nor did this guy talk about banning child support.
No, that's stupid.
Yeah.
That's immoral. That's immoral. It's just, I just don't like when, I don't. Yeah, I wish he had said that. That'd have been funny. That'd been funny. But yeah, man. Let's move
Next
on.
one,
Let's move on. So what? The death penalty is essential for society. Ooh, it's a strong one, mate. It's a strong one. You know what? Yeah, I can start on this. Look, the death penalty is a super harsh punishment.
I mean, there's nothing really gets.
Well, I mean, you think that, innit? But it's just meant to be a really big deterrent for committing very serious crimes, i.e. murder. I don't know what else can in the US lead to death penalty, but probably bank robbery, terrorism. All of these things, right? So
also there's I don't know how many states have the death penalty still as
probably not that many, but probably more than you think though.
Maybe
there's still a lot of people on death row, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But you can have punishments that I think are just as harsh, if not harsher, that would be as big of a deterrent for certain things as dying, I would say. So I don't think it's essential. Is it right? I think a more interesting question is the death penalty right? Like, should that be a way of
that's
people?
That's how we should take it. I'm against the death penalty under any circumstances.
Really?
Yeah.
Why did you say that?
Because I think that it's a worse there can be worse punishments, and I just don't agree with the taking of life under really any circumstance.
Fair.
If someone is committed a crazy crime and they've been captured, I think they should pay the price for that crime in a more extensive manner as just opposed to being killed. I think that's a slight let off.
Yeah.
Of course, we believe in the afterlife, and they should be judged and punished in that afterlife. But in the realm of uncertainty, in terms of what happens next, I think they should serve out a sentence that is closer to being just. And I think physical harm can probably be. It's hard to justify physical harm in today's society, in terms of torture or cutting the hands off, things like that. It should just be probably serve out the rest of your life in isolation, with minimal sunlight, minimal fresh air, minimal. We're talking about the worst crimes possible.
No, that's it.
We're talking about terrorism.
Yeah.
Mass rape, mass murder.
But then you think of this as well. The death penalty. There's no going back once you've killed someone. Now this obviously is a minority of cases, but you can have people that are wrongfully convicted, and then if they're dead, well, they're dead. They've lost their life for no reason. Or even the fact that like the death row sort of system, and this is purely on just America. 'Cause I don't know when they got rid of it in the UK, but in America, I mean, you've got guys that are on death row for 30, 40, 50 years, and it's just like, you might as well have just left them in jail for life, fam.
Yeah.
Like, but as you've said, like, there really are better ways. I don't think, because, when someone commits a crime, I think the main thing you want to do is rehabilitate them, and death does not do that in any way, shape, or form.
But death would be for the ones that have committed a crime. So
there's no way back.
Yeah, there is no way back.
I mean, are there crimes that there's no way back from? Do you believe?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I believe that anyone can turn a page and become a new person. I believe that it's not impossible. It's not statistically impossible, right? It's just so statistically improbable that you shouldn't attempt it. Because if you attempt it, you might get one person who's rehabilitated, and then everyone else who isn't, and then they commit that crime again. And if they could commit that crime again, then it's not worth any of them being rehabilitated, in my opinion. So I wouldn't focus on rehabilitation. I would focus on fair punishment for the crime that they've done without taking someone's life. And it's also because I've just got a stance on, I don't believe anyone's life should be taken. And the point you made was one that I was going to raise, which is as soon as you give the death penalty and you follow through with it with someone who was, well, he didn't commit the crime.
Yeah.
I think that's one death too many. I think that person losing their life is not a just thing for everyone else who was rightly convicted and lost their life through death penalty. If you get it wrong once, then it's not worth it, in my opinion. And that's happened many times before.
Yeah.
So
the sort of consequence of making the error is so great with that. I mean, at least if you wrongfully imprison someone, they don't get the time back, but at least they can be financially compensated, or sort of, you can try and make things right in other ways. At least there's the opportunity to work that out.
Yeah.
With death, the finality of it is such a there's no chance for that, unfortunately.
Of course.
But I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think that we may need harsher punishments, though.
I completely agree with that.
In the West, especially, like, I don't know. You see on social media, guys have got PS5. I don't even have a PS5, bro. I don't have a PS5. I've seen guys with PS5, fam. Guys with more food in their room than I ever had in my house, man. Bro, if they tried to buy what they've got on their thing, that would cost them £300 in Tesco, fam. So I'm just like, look, I think, and that's obviously a minority of cases as well, but...
And it's specific to the UK, because I don't think they're like that in the US.
Yeah.
But, no, I agree.
There needs to be harsher punishments, man.
They have to, in the UK, 100%. And then I think also in some states in the US. I think if you murder someone, you shouldn't come back. Like, I don't really understand why a life sentence is judged as 25 or 30 years.
That always confused me as well.
Yeah, but you see in the US also them give out these like 453 years in prison.
Just in case you thought, man.
Yeah.
Savage, mate.
But
savage.
Yeah, I think we mainly agree on this one. Or do we? You said yeah.
No, you can't. You can't be doing the death penalty. There's just the chance of error is so great, and there's worse punishments than death, and as you said, I think that there's just the fact that if you wrongfully convict, and I don't even think it's that bad of a. All right, it's obviously a really bad punishment, but as you said, it's an escape to some level.
Yeah.
It's an escape to some level. People should have to sit down for years and think about what they've done, and really have to reflect, and hopefully through the reflection, become a better person. And yeah, you're going to be away from society, but you can still become a better person through the years of existing in jail in a socially adjusted way, at least.
Yeah.
You can't do that if you're dead. So I don't agree with the death
We
penalty.
haven't. These are interesting points, by the way. We
Yeah.
could really look into these and go deeper. One thing we didn't look into is, of course, the financial cost that is associated with keeping someone in prison as opposed to killing them off.
Yeah.
There are so many wasted expenses by our governments that I think that, if everything else was effectively allocated, and then you have the argument to say we need the economy, or there needs to be more expenditure for improving people's lives, and then you can make that argument. But I would deter from making that argument because there is so much waste in terms of the allocation of these funds.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think,
But even so, man, to say if I ever saw a politician saying we need to start killing prisoners because we don't have the money to keep them,
well, they're letting them go.
Like that's great. But yeah, I guess that is why they had to let them go.
But yeah, the next point is.
To be fair, we never give that one any love, man.
Yeah.
That little one in the background, man. We see you in the back, man. We know you're there. We still love you. Right. But yeah, I mean, this is a continuation of our last episode on
Few difficulties with the last one.
Yeah. You know how things are, man. Technology's gonna fail you at some point. The mics let us down, but we're here to carry on reacting to hot takes or interesting issues or opinions that we found. And yeah, man, like we got to get straight back into it.
Yeah, let's go straight. Should we just go straight into
I reckon we go straight back into it. A woman is anyone who identifies as a woman.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? How does that statement make you feel?
The statement is wrong.
Oh.
I mean, no, the statement is objectively wrong. You can't. We'll go into the topic itself, but you can't describe something as anything that identifies as something, right? Because you have to describe something with its true variables. You can't say a chair is anything that looks like a chair. What is a chair? So I think the statement itself, a woman is anyone that identifies as a woman, is a wrong statement. You have to define a woman under certain characteristics, variables, whatever. And if you're unwilling to do so, like a lot of people are, it kind of shows that you're feeding into a certain cause.
Yeah, and I mean, that cause has made it very difficult, purposefully has made it very difficult to define what a woman is. I mean, if you were to go around like outside and ask 20 people, what does it mean to be a woman? What's your perception or idea or understanding of what a woman is? I'm sure you'd get a range of different answers that would have you more confused than you were at the start. So, and I feel like, I'm not going to say the left, but at least the status quo changing or sort of progressive, sections of our society have really tried to muddy the waters in this topic so that interesting ideas can be pushed.
Well, it is the left, but the further left.
Yeah.
It's not just anyone on the left.
Yeah.
We also discussed before how these terms are kind of insignificant to a certain extent. We all have different policies that are either on the left or on the right that we agree with. So, but those that tend to be on the far left believe that a woman is anyone that identifies as a woman, such as this guy. Yeah. But I mean, what would you describe a woman as?
Um, I have to say, look, I think a woman is a human being able of becoming a mother
Yeah.
if all of her reproductive organs work well or work in the way that they were, meant to work. Um, with that being said, a woman, if she is fully healthy, would have, breasts, a vagina, ovaries, a womb. And so that's my understanding of what a woman is. So what does being female mean or feeling female? That becomes a bit more interesting because I fully believe that there are 8 billion people on earth. There are going to be people with hormone imbalances or different internal setups, which mean that they may truly feel and probably actually are internally more aligned to a sex that they were not born as externally sort of demonstrating, right? Or
Yeah.
if that sort of makes sense.
I think that makes complete sense. I think you've put it really well. But this obsession of then having to label these people who are somewhat marginalized as part of one of the other groups,
Yeah.
and therefore you change the definition of a group to be inclusive,
Yeah.
I think is completely wrong. And I don't think there's nothing wrong about being part of a slightly different group.
Yeah.
I believe that everyone has the same human rights. I don't care how you change, who you are, whatever, what you want to identify as, anything. And if someone came to me under any circumstance and asked me, could you please refer to me as this? I would oblige I would say, sure, if they done so respectfully. If they tried to push me and said, if you don't, I'm going to label you as hate speech and sue you and all of this, then I wouldn't really react kindly to that. But it's under respectful circumstances, I'm happy to label anyone as anything they wish to be labeled to, also because it doesn't affect me in any type of way.
Yeah.
But to change an internationally recognized word to accommodate for people who are born differently, there's also a lot of people that aren't just born differently or feel internally differently, but get convinced, through a lot of the stuff that we see as young people that they should change and they don't.
So I actually really agree with one thing that you've just said. You made a really good point on inclusivity and the need for, people to
The obsession.
fit into already established labels, right? Now, I just think we need to come to the understanding and the realization that, trans women, trans men are different than women and men, sort of in their traditional sense. And that's okay. That's okay. People should feel empowered and feel they should have the right to undergo sex changes and be proud of who they are, if that's who they are. It's 2024. You can do what you want, but we should not be forced to view a trans woman and a woman in exactly the same way.
I mean, you can see the extreme sides of this are evident through people who maintain that, for example, trans women so a male that's transformed into a female, should take part in a women's sport.
Yeah.
That's absurd. That's like craziness on so many levels.
Yeah.
I don't want to start an argument for why, not an argument, but a discussion. I think it's evident why they shouldn't be able to take part in those sports.
Yeah.
But you can't say that the movement hasn't gone too far when you see these things happen, because there have been trans women who've competed in women's sports and have completely demolished those sports because of their physical advantages.
Yeah.
So that's one example. I'm also, for example, I'm not, I don't believe that women bathrooms should be shared with anyone that identifies as a woman, because just because you identify as a woman, you can claim it so easily. No one can check how much, what extent you've taken in your transformation.
Can I say on that? So that one's super interesting. I think that the way to approach that is, if you're a trans person, right, and you're trying to use, the gender, the bathroom of the gender you're transitioning to, come on, have some sort of social awareness, social consideration. If you're in the process of transitioning and you don't look like a woman yet, come on, man. Like, do you really want to go into that bathroom? Now, you may feel like a woman inside, but because you don't look like a woman, or because you won't be perceived as a woman by the other people in that bathroom, that's going to cause a negative effect on the sort of environment around you, most likely. And I think that if you're pushing for social, social empowerment and people feeling good and people feeling happy in themselves, I think if you're transitioning and you don't quite look like a woman or man yet, you want to use that bathroom, you should probably use a disabled toilet, or
Yeah,
or hold it in, man. But just because, like, come on, just it doesn't take very much to understand how that's going to become an issue.
of course.
It's just sort of common sense, I think.
No, I completely agree. The the thing that I'm completely against, and it's the really hard part, is that, for example, this quote says a woman is anyone that identifies as a woman, so you don't even have to transition. So certain people believe that you don't have to make any sort of changes. You don't have to take hormone blockers if you don't have to do any of this. You can just identify as a woman. So if I identified as a woman, I could go into a woman's bathroom or do similar things, just because no one can then tell me that I am not a woman, And I think that is so extreme. But the way you said it was perfectly right. I think if it goes back to a point of introspection and just understanding at what stage you are, and eventually making a conscious decision that it's not only about how you feel and saying, no, I feel like a woman or I feel like a man and therefore I should be able to do all these things. There's also understanding, okay, maybe not yet, or
for sure.
maybe not at all. Maybe a man that's transitioned into a woman should never be able to compete in most, not all, maybe some sports don't require a physical advantage, along with other women.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we've sort of answered that one there.
Yeah, this could be a podcast in itself. We might actually do it eventually.
I think we definitely should.
Let's go into the next one, though. The next one's interesting. It says religion should be kept private, banning it from public institutions. On all aspects, apparently.
Yeah. It says it constitutes pseudoscience, can disrupt public spaces. Now, this is a super interesting one. I mean, the first thing I think of is that you've got to give religion some respect, because many thriving societies nowadays have their foundations built in religion, the moral values, the societal roles, the ways of thinking and doing. And yeah, fair enough, they may not have been perfect or perfectly applicable to today's world and a lot of people's ideas, but you've got a starting point for the societies and countries that we now love and that we have so much pride in. So, to sort of ban that from public institutions.
But also, I'm unsure to what this means. Does he mean like churches should be closed because they're a public?
Yeah.
They're a public institution, and I mean that's quite extreme.
It is.
I mean, especially in the UK and in Italy for me, and in the US, that would be quite a lot of churches to close down.
It would be. Go on.
I also don't see how it's intrusive enough to be adamant of closing them down.
Yeah.
And then if they're speaking about something different, like the people that are on the street and that have a microphone and speak out the message of God, then I don't see how that's any different from being able to protest or being able to speak publicly. It's free speech. So I don't really understand that.
I think it might be talking about sort of religious influences on public institutions, like schools, like the law, workplaces, things like that. But at the end of the day, you look at schools. I mean, the first schools were, or at least in my understanding, the first schools were like tied to churches in the UK. You want to separate that? Interesting one. The law, a lot of the moral sort of ethical codes that the law is based on, again, comes from certain, religions and certain, influences in that sphere of things. So again, it's a difficult one.
Also, sorry, is there nothing you can learn from the Bible? Is there nothing that you can take from any of the, holy books?
Like, I think, and obviously I'm a Christian, right? So I obviously have a biased standpoint here. There's so much truth, and there's so much truth in the Bible that lasts the test of time. This book was compiled, well, the latest parts of it, 2,000-ish years ago. The earliest parts, 3,000. Who knows how old? And there's truths in there that still resonate to this day. So you can't really be writing it off. I do want to talk on a pseudoscience point though, because I can understand fake science, things like in Genesis how the world was created, some of the miracles, some of the natural phenomena that it talks about. Now I can understand how, if you really love science, you could look at religion and it could turn you off religion, right? But
Well, if you were to take everything that was written literally.
But then why? Like, come on, man! Don't take everything literally. There's figurative value in a lot of what has been said in these books, and if you go into, it's like, would you go through life in general taking everything literally? If if you can't see the nuance in things and the metaphorical sort of value in things, that's actually a social disorder. And so yeah, you can't just go through life taking everything literally. It's not going to get you very far. I think it's very easy to reconcile things like religion and science, and a lot of people do nowadays. That's why there's still so many religious people in a world that is very scientifically advanced. But yeah,
I mean, I also just don't understand the extent for the argument.
yeah,
I went to when I first moved to London, I went to a Catholic school, and it wasn't, you actually had to be a Catholic to go into the school. It's not like they were going on the street and trying to get anyone in.
yeah,
You had to have been baptized, you had to have certain things to get in. And then I went to just a normal, non-religious school.
yeah,
And it was just, it was easier to get into the non-religious school than the Catholic one. So at least from my perspective, it's not pushed as much as, enough to warrant a statement like that where it should be banned.
yeah. It's interesting though, because I think that's only right in Western societies. I think if you go more east, well, then there are societies that I think are too closely based on religious control, and I think that can actually be a detriment when the choice isn't there for people. As you said, the key thing is, at least in the UK, US, there's a clear choice. You don't have to engage in all of these things that's clearly annoying this person, and you can shield yourself from it if you want. You go to a secular part of the country that doesn't sort of have much religious goings there, and you'll be all right.
I actually reckon that those schools, the ones that are non-religious, should have more of a religious presence in terms of informing. When I went to the Catholic school, we had to pray. It wasn't a choice. You had to be there and pray. Then the extent to which you prayed, you could have just closed your eyes and pretended to. But you had to stand there and do so.
Yeah.
So these kind of values were forced upon kids who were Catholic. But at my other school, there was no mention of any religion at any point. But I think it would have been beneficial to at least read through some of the books and try to take value from it, and maybe introduce some people to religion in a completely open way where, if people wanted to pray before lunch, they could have done so by their own accord. If they wanted to read deeper into the Bible or the Torah or anything, they could have done so. But it was a complete, it feels like it has to be either like really intense or just no mention at all.
I think, and the middle line is usually the best way. Maybe that's not right, but in this sense, at least, as you said, finding a balance between the two, where you're informed, and you're given the choice.
Yeah.
And people of other faiths feel happy to be part of the society and feel valued as well. You know, that's the right way to do things.
And you also, you know, you make a great point, because you'd be able to learn about those other faiths
Yeah.
and integrate with people of other faiths a lot easier if you can appreciate their values and understand them on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's almost a taboo, you know, at least the school I went to, where there wasn't any mention, there wasn't anything. And on the other side of it, when you go to a Catholic school and they force you to do all these things, it might deter you from the religion itself. You might just be like, as a kid, especially when you don't really see the value in any of these things, it might just make you be like, I don't want to be part of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an interesting one.
No, it was. Again, we probably have to go into it deeper.
It's the case with all of these, but
It is.
it's also good speaking about it, you know, on a fast-paced level with limited information except what we already know and our intuition. We'll probably make a lot more mistakes with this, but we're conscious of that.
It's part of it.
But yeah, it was good. That kind of wraps up this episode.
Yeah.
We'll actually be going into another one of this where we haven't seen any of the other hot takes. But yeah.
Yeah. Guys, we'll see you very soon. Thank you for tuning into Layers. And yeah, we'll be back with more hot takes very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right.
Thank you.